Welcome to the Saturday Morning Nerd Show. I am Marcus Blake, your host, and joined with me is our gaming staff, our squad leader, Mr. K. Scott Cooper.
What is the haps, kiddos?
And from the Electric Jellyfish Podcast, Mr. Chad Womack.
Morning, folks. Happy 2022.
It is the new year, which also means that we look back at 2021 and we're about to announce our game of the year. It's our game of the year show. So we're going to tell you our top 10 video games of 2021 and what came out on top. And if you haven't played these games, we're going to tell you why you should go ahead and get them. So, but before we get started, a little bit of news, a little bit of stuff going on that's happened here recently. I know this is a gaming show, but we also deal with pop culture and stuff. And we already want to give a big shout out to 2022 and just say, fuck you, you took Betty White. Or 2021. She couldn't even make it. So yeah, go suck it. Go suck it. Come on.
I'm a big fan of the meme that I found yesterday that said, no, nope, Betty White didn't die. No. She grabbed 2021 by the throat and whispered in its ear, I'm taking you with me, you son of a bitch. Then she threw them both into the fires of Mordor to save us all. That's my fucking story, and I'm sticking to it. It is canon. With it.
There's another one going around where to make 2022 better, she did sacrifice herself to the gods. I'm like,
what was she 2 weeks away from her century mark? I mean, come on.
Yeah, from her 100th, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, come on. I mean, how cruel is that? I think even Ryan Reynolds was like planning this huge birthday bash because you've got multiple generations that love Betty White. I was at lunch with family and it came across, everybody got it's like they got the news alert at the same time. And I mean, I just heard one woman in the hamburger place, no, that's not fucking true. And you're like, what?
I was in the truck going to get another load to move over here to the new house, and it popped up on my screen. I just sat there and I just screamed out like Anakin, no.
Well, and there is some of the stuff that ties into gaming. There's been some things where she has like tried to being on a gaming console, and I forget the name of the movie, and I apologize to our audience about that. But this isn't just about video games. I mean, she really got her start. Her career started with hosting game shows in the 50s. So, but yeah, the last of the Golden Girls, and only my mother would point this out, the last of the Mary Tyler Moore Show cast, because Ed Asner passed away earlier this year.
Yep.
So, yeah. So fuck you, 2021. Come on. Anyway.
Y'all can have it.
Before we get started, one little quick review. It dropped about 2 weeks ago. You can watch it free on YouTube. It is called Power On, the Story of Xbox. With it being the 20th anniversary of the first Xbox console, they did a 6-part documentary series on what it took Microsoft to make the Xbox, to the 360, to Xbox One, and where they are now over the last 20 years. I encourage everybody, go watch this documentary series. It's fascinating. You will probably have to watch it a few times. If you're like me and you didn't really start out on Xbox and you don't really remember the start of everything, there's a lot of incredible information of how they pushed hardware and in a lot of ways was better than PlayStation. It's incredibly fascinating. I know Chad and I were texting late one night. We were like neck and neck on the episodes talking about this. And I was asking Chad questions because I know you've always been an Xbox guy. And it's like, did this happen? Did this happen to you? Did you go through the Red Ring of Death? I don't remember that.
3 times. 3 damn times. The first time while playing Rock Band. I'm pissed because I just gotten it.
Well, that's a fascinating story too. I didn't get an Xbox 360 till, I don't know, probably about 9 years ago, and I got a cheap one at a pawn shop just so I could play Halo for the first time. But I didn't realize everything they had gone through, and the fact that they lost $1.5 billion to get everything replaced, fixed, replace consoles free, no questions asked. It was a huge gamble by the company, and it paid off. And the 360 turned out to be one of the best consoles ever made.
And that crisis actually has local ties, because if you look at, because I'm from Mesquite, Texas. And if you go look at Mesquite, Texas on the Wikipedia page, it actually mentions that they were one of the central hubs for people to return their coffin boxes with their red ringed Xbox 360s at. That's where a lot of people in this part of the country were bringing it to drop it off.
Huh. Interesting.
The UPS depot over off of Samuel.
Well, anyway, if you don't know much about it, still kind of torn on whether you're a PlayStation or Xbox. And, we've debated this over the last year with the new consoles being released. Everything that they have put into having better hardware, being the first console to be able to connect people online. Also, it's really cool to, have Snoop Dogg in his commentary about, I really like that part of the documentary, him talking about, man, for us adults, this is like the gossip center. We were all online playing Madden.
Your digital speakeasy in your own living room.
Yeah. I don't even remember any of the commercials where they were advertising Madden on Xbox, and you might end up playing against Eli or Peyton Manning. I thought those were kind of funny. But anyway,
I guess that's the other side of the apocalypse also, wouldn't it? Losing Madden the same week.
I know. I was talking about that with a friend of the show, Daniel Robert Durant, and it was like, how do you honor a go play Madden. You
Mhm.
know, the greatest football game that we've ever had on a console. And while we have our problems with it, you know,
Or
it-
watch his documentary that they managed to get out right before he passed away. I've seen a chunk of it. I haven't finished it, but yeah, go seek out All Madden. It's pretty in depth.
well, but that's got to be a collector's item now too, like the original, Madden game that ported over to a console with him, on the cover.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Remember they did that championship edition, I think, that was in a gold art cover for the Genesis back in the mid 90s that only Blockbuster had. I imagine the value of that thing has gone up even higher now.
Well, let's say, imagine if somehow somebody got him to sign one of those.
I was just about to say, if you got that one, I imagine if anybody that had the opportunity to meet him had something for him to sign and they had that, that's probably what they had him sign.
Yeah, I would. So
I think they're all like they individually numbered, like they were really hard to come by.
Well, Madden 22 may basically be the same game from Madden, 21.
And 19 and 18 and 17, but
but the legacy of having John Madden do the cover and be a part of this game and stuff like that, that's what I think is incredible. And that's another interesting story about the franchise. He wasn't the first person they approached when EA was trying to do this. He was just basically the first guy to come along with some credibility that said yes, and this is a great idea. So anyway, but as I said, go watch the Power On documentary on YouTube. It's fascinating, and if it doesn't make you want to definitely get the new Xbox, then maybe you're just a lost cause. I don't know.
It'll definitely make you want to play something.
Right. And I say that as I'm wearing a PlayStation t-shirt, but there's an irony.
I wasn't going to say it. I wouldn't. God knows I was thinking it.
I did this on purpose. This is my little, remember when PlayStation was good? Now I like the PlayStation 5.
That first console had its own version of the red ring of death when you would constantly, and the PlayStation 2 when you would constantly get those disc read errors.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
Legend of the Dragoon, never finished it, motherfucker.
I remember having to turn my original PlayStation upside down just so it would read the dadgum disc.
This might be a sign of the apocalypse for Texas. I was in GameStop a few days ago, just looking for what end of the year stuff they had. And one of the managers, she was telling me that they have to now check this because of the Texas power grid system. And there's power surges going on that the discs get ruined. So they have to double check to make sure they're actually working before they put them out on the floor. I'm like, that's something that you don't really hear about in other states. And, for us in Texas that survived, Wintergeddon, where everybody was out without power for like multiple days. He's like, I don't mind being snowed in or it's too cold to go outside or whatever, as long as I have electricity and I can game online with friends. But when you have no heat, no power, it's like, well, it's board games by flashlight. However,
thank God I've still got my 3DS XL.
Well, I'm prepared for it this year if it happens. Yes, I have devised a winter campaign, and I made a winter map that can be printed out for the Anmar Chronicles. I'm like, don't keep us going for 36 to 48 hours. Anyway,
I've done that before. Like in the past, whenever I was living in West Virginia, this like freak ass snowstorm just randomly showed up and dumped like 18 inches of snow in the matter of like 2 hours.
right.
And so I remember inviting some friends over to my house and stuff like that. And I kind of secretly knew that was going to happen. And I just so happened to invite the entire role-playing team that I had. And so when everybody got snowed in, we spent the next 4 days just playing campaign straight. Like the fucking table never moved out of my living room, and we pretty much just camped out around it.
I think that's a great way to survive, a winter storm. So see, this is how us nerds do it. So, but anyway, before we start getting to our top 10 games of the year and talk about, how we voted and stuff like that, we have a really quick this week's sign of the apocalypse, because never before in the history of that nerd show, as we celebrate our 10-year anniversary, does this ever happen. Scott and I voted for a Call of Duty game to be in our top 3 games of the year. Yes, that fucking happened.
It did, sadly. I'm not proud of it, folks. I'm really not.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a sign that it was just a really off year for video games, or Activision finally got their act together. And
well, you know what it is? What it is Activision realizes that they're about to get sued out the asshole. And so they had to put out at least a semi-decent game so that way they had money to pay folks.
Yeah. And by the way, thank you for bringing that up. When we did our article over a month ago in the magazine, Is Call of Duty Good Again? We made a statement at the end of the article, but I also wanted to include it in this podcast. Here at that nerd show, we all stand with the employees of Activision, demanding change and demanding that your CEO get the boot, who hasn't done enough for the company except just try to milk it for all it's worth. And gaming companies, developers, you should have a safe environment, free from racism, sexism,
whatever.
Exactly, harassment, to be able to make great games. So
I mean, I'm sorry, but that is nerd culture is being inclusive and letting all the people who feel as weirdos and outsiders and everything else like that to be able to come together, because that's the very fucking reason nerdy stuff exists, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes,
so
sir.
you can't put any pins or any other kind of horse shit on it, because that's what it is.
Yes.
Welcome to it.
Well, and that's the way it should be. So, but yeah, we absolutely stand with you, and we hope that big changes are around the corner this year, and that you guys get back to making fantastic games.
Yep, and do not let up on them sons of bitches. Do not let up. Go for the throat and the balls.
Well, especially Scott and I talked about with the this year's Call of Duty. Very interested to see where they go with it. I mean, if you have a story where it's a special forces unit hunting down, Nazis trying to escape, with plans to build the Fourth Reich, I want a sequel to that game. I want to be able to go around the world post World War II and hunt down Nazis.
Yeah, and I just don't want it to be just like, oh, we just keep giving you little bits of DLC here. No. Give me another fucking game, please. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, with that said, let's talk about our top 10 games of the year. All right, we're going to start with number 10. Now, this was the one game that I was the only one who played it. It's why it wasn't voted on by everyone. And it's the game Deathloop. And the reason I'm the only one that played it on our staff is it was only made for the PlayStation 5. And that was kind of its biggest flaw, is it wasn't widely available for everyone. Now, later this year, it has been announced that it will be on Xbox and available for the PlayStation 4. There's even rumors that it will actually come to Xbox Game Pass day one once they make it for Xbox. But great game, should definitely have been rated higher. But if a lot of people haven't played it, what are you going to do? And I know what PlayStation was trying to do. They wanted their own PlayStation 5 exclusive games, to be released to push people towards that versus, what Microsoft was doing with day one releases on Game Pass. But anyway, a game that kind of takes us back to old school formats where you didn't have an autosave. It's about two characters dealing with a time loop. One is hunting the other character. The other one is trying to survive and get out of it. And if you die, well, you go back to the beginning of that time loop and you have to start over. It's incredibly frustrating at times, but a lot of fun. I mean, it doesn't take you all the way back to the beginning of the game. It takes you back to a kind of a save point where whatever mission that you're running within that time loop, you have to go. So yeah, I mean, if you screw up and you've spent an hour getting towards the end, and you're like, no. So
you know what I find odd about this is that because of who developed it and that it's also available on Windows, you can get it on the PC, but it's developed, but it's developed by Bethesda.
Well, the reason and here's the reason that it was only available for PlayStation 5. It was when Microsoft bought Bethesda in its development, it was one of those games that is part of the deal that had to exclusively go to PlayStation at first.
So it's a time exclusive for the console, basically.
Right. So, I mean,
yeah, because it was one of the kind of like the final deals that Bethesda had made before, you know, the chopping block of Microsoft showed up. So they had to honor it, you know, posthumously.
Mm-hmm. They didn't. They kind of grandfathered it in other words.
Right. I mean, it's fine, but you would definitely get a hell of a lot more people playing it if it had been on Xbox and especially Game Pass. So I feel like we'll continue to talk about this game in 2022 when more people get to play it. I mean, without a doubt, I have by this fall it should be on Game Pass and one of those hidden games that you should go and try out. I enjoyed it. I did not complete it, but everything I loved it. The strategy. I mean, you definitely have to change your tactics, and you don't necessarily need to kill everybody. Sometimes it's just better to sneak around and keep going. But
no such thing. Always take out every target. Clean sweep, baby. Clean sweep.
If you're playing Splinter Cell or Metal Gear Solid.
A message from our squad leader. No, everybody dies.
Everybody has to die, because if they don't, at least choke them out and knock them out. Because you know what? You don't want some bitch coming up behind you. How do you know? How do you know? Incapacitate or kill everybody.
You just don't. Yeah, you just don't.
And when we're rolling as a squad, now you know how we do it.
That and suppressed every fucking time.
Exactly. But anyway, Deathloop came out at number 10. It is a top 10 game, and I hope more people get a chance to play it in the coming year, because I think it will end up, its rating will definitely go up. And it's one of the more unique things that Bethesda has done. So, all right, number 9. And number 9 turned out to be our multiplayer of the year. So before we start talking about this game, I want to preface it with this statement. Zombie games are cool. Fending off zombie hordes are awesome. We love zombie games. Sometimes it's the best part of Call of Duty. But what if you had that same concept, but you were a colonial marine and you had to fend off aliens that were not only coming at you, but crawling on the ceiling and dropping acid on you. So you're having to really watch your surroundings.
Dropping acid on you?
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
Like listening to Pink Floyd and watching Wizard of Oz while Dark Side of the Moon was playing.
Yeah, no, it happens, and you think it's the weirdest thing ever, and then all of a sudden, they have you come over and they want you to try some kind of new face hugger thing, and it's all over from there, man.
I'm sorry, that was very dad joke.
How did this turn into an after-school PSA announcement about drugs?
Just say no to xenomorphs dropping acid.
No. You're getting the saying wrong. And knowing is half the battle.
Yeah.
But no, we're talking about Alien Fireteam Elite. A great multiplayer, great game for you to squad up. Like I said, if you love zombie games, then this is perfect for you. And we all love the Aliens movie, the James Cameron Aliens movie. So yeah, you're basically a colonial marine having to do little missions and survive, waves of aliens dropping acid.
So this is your chance to literally be some fucking heartbreakers. They know what I mean. and have your aliens moment.
Exactly.
And then
it
still
came-
be pissed that Aliens 3 happened and then that whole character arc died for no reason.
It came out, I don't know, like August or something. It still retails at about $40, but it came to Game Pass about 2 weeks ago for Xbox users, and that's where we really got a chance to try it out and play it. And so it kind of quickly became our multiplayer of the year. For as much as we again love to play zombies and squat up and all that, I mean, this game is just super fucking cool for what they did, and it's a great game.
Everybody gets to finally go on a bug hunt for realsies and not fucking, feel like, you're letting yourself down. I will say this much though, gang, if you're going to play it, as Marcus has said, it's a squad game. It's a 3-up group. You can play it with, 2 people, 1 people, whatever, but in its essence, it's supposed to be like a 3-person, fire team sort of thing. And that's how the game's tiered. So you do get bots that will help you. They're like Utani bots. They're pretty much as worthless as they look. But all in all, it's so just keep that in mind. If you're playing it by yourself or you're having some issues and stuff like that, either try to find a third man or a second body or whatever, and attempt it that way. So if you can't find anybody at all, maybe you want to join our fire team. Send us an email with all your information, application, if you will, and then we'll go from there.
We love a good scrappy stray.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, we do. But yeah, Aliens Fire Team Elite is our multiplayer of the year. It came out at number 9 in our top 10 games of the year. And it's perfect for the Xbox Game Pass. All right, number 8. If you are a fan of the Hitman series, especially how they kind of rebooted it for the next generation of consoles, Hitman 3 came out this year with more missions for Agent 47. They didn't really go crazy or make any major changes from the last 2 games.
No, I'll tell you, it was just a clean improvement, is what it felt like. I mean, there were a few things that didn't quite make some fucking sense, but overall, it's game stuff, so whatever. But no, it's pretty solid. I don't really like I don't like the fucking way they're going with the pay for all these extra missions shit. But
yeah. I mean, I get it with DLC. That's what keeps the games alive. To where you can still continue to profit off of them. But I completely agree with you. But it's a very solid entry in the Hitman series, and what they're doing with it, and great missions. This
it's
time
good.
of year, you can find the game fairly cheap. So
and just like in the second one, it has the ability for you to be able to take different routes. If you just had to fuck up and you were like, oh shit, I ended up actually fucking this all up and I killed the guy though, but I murdered him, like shooting him, and I didn't want to do that. Well, guess what? You can go back and do it again.
Yeah.
So
we have the other 2 installments since they brought back Hitman. We've rated pretty high, and I think Hitman 2 ended up free on PlayStation at some point.
Yep.
So for the lack of games, I'm not saying it wouldn't be good enough to end up in a top 10 list any normal year. Again, this has been kind of a lackluster year for games. But it's absolutely a good solid entry, and if you find it on sale, I mean, definitely pick it up if you love playing Hitman. And those games have a lot of replay value too, because as Scott said, there's different ways that you can complete missions. So the different choices, I know, for example, like in the first one with the fashion show, I've played that a couple different ways, and the first time I played it, I kind of laughed. They were like, "You didn't complete the mission. You didn't go and get the boat, like the boat key." And I'm like, "Yes, but I escaped a different way and killed my target. So I'm done. I've succeeded, whether you think I have or not." But anyway, Hitman 3 is our number 8. And you should definitely check that out if you're a fan of the series. All right. Number 7, and this one is this is why it's great to be an Xbox customer and have Game Pass. A day one release on Game Pass, Forza Horizon 5. Just dropped here about a month ago. And it is a fantastic entry in the Forza series, especially the Horizon series that they do. One day we may have to do the comparison between Gran Turismo versus Forza, because Forza was, created when Xbox got into or Microsoft got into the console business to specifically rival Gran Turismo. But Forza Horizon 5, I mean, it's gorgeous. It's the next Forza that was truly built for the Xbox Series X. Going to the streets of Mexico and the jungles, and I mean, it was great. Now, Chad, I think you played this game a lot more than we have, right?
No, not really. Not really. I just barely scratched the surface on it. It's just that Forza Horizons. I'm a Horizons guy rather than a Forza Prime guy, because to me, like, yes, Forza and Gran Turismo are beautiful to look at, but they're usually not that fun to play because it's just a sim, basically. Whereas Forza Horizon tends to be more arcadey in its general makeup, but it's got all the wow factor graphically, visually of the mothership. And Forza Horizon to me never disappoints. It absolutely never disappoints. It's the only thing that's ever in question is the location going to be as cool as the last location from the previous game. And when I heard that it was going to be in Mexico, I'm like, okay, let's see where we go here. And once again, they dazzle you. It's one of the most visually impressive, consistently visually impressive games on the system.
Right. Well, I think it was another one of those games that kind of got delayed from the pandemic, so it released later this year, like Halo. But I agree with Chad. I mean, it never disappoints if you love the Forza racing games. So, of course, it ended up in our top 10 list this year, and it made it even better that, again, it was a day one release on Game Pass, and you didn't have to run out and spend $60 on it. So
it kind of fills that void that Burnout left behind when EA stopped doing Burnout, because that was always my favorite.
Right.
I don't know what you want to call that. Arcade racer, I guess, if anything, because more often than not, you didn't care if you won the race. You just cared how many cars you destroyed on the process.
Gotta get them points, son.
What was my body count? Did I build up my crash breaker and detonate the city block? God, I hope so.
I love Gran Turismo. Played the hell out of 6. I mean, I'm very much looking forward to 7. It's a great simulation, perfect for PlayStation. I think I gravitate more towards Forza because when I got into it, the Top Gear guys were narrating everything. So it felt like I was in a show, and just all the different tests and things that you can do with it. And I know for me personally, there was about a month where that's all I played. I even went and bought like a steering wheel just to see if it really made a difference. I did.
Peripheral.
I took it back though. I took it back because I'm like, nah,
I would certainly fucking hope so.
It's a little overpriced. Learn how to drive the car properly with a controller.
Jesus.
Well, I mean, I get the people that want the hardcore setup, and the guy at GameStop that was trying to really sell me on it. And he's like, "Oh man, you're doing a racing game. This is the only way to do it." I'm like, "Really? The only way?"
No, I don't think so.
You're going to make me spend hundreds of dollars to get the steering wheel. I'm like, shouldn't I just go buy an actual arcade racing game?
Well, my question is how does he then qualify it whenever you go get your ass beat instantly by fucking some kid holding the controller? I mean, it's just like, how do you explain that there, cottage kid?
I mean, the only way, hell, like I was at Nebraska Furniture Mart this week, and they sell that big ass wraparound rig with the roll cage and everything right there in the center of the store. It's like a $5,000-$6,000 rig where you've got like monitors that surround you and shit with the steering wheel and the gas pedals and shit. I'm like, no, No, I don't care how much I love a game. No, no, no,
Right.
no.
Hey, I appreciate a good racing simulation, but at the same time, learn how to play it on an actual controller. It may take some practice, but like anything, it's worth doing. So, but Forza Horizon 5 ends up in our top 10 list. It's a great game. And as I said, it's free on Game Pass. So definitely go check it out.
Anytime Horizon comes out, it's going to wind up on the list, at least on mine.
Oh, yeah. Can't necessarily disagree. All right. Number 6. Again, kind of a off year. I don't know if this would have necessarily ended up in our top 10 list because we don't focus so much on like remasters. But the Mass Effect Legendary Edition with the remastered versions of the first 3 Mass Effect games. I'm not. It's great. It really is. They did a beautiful job, especially for, sorry about that. A little background noise, but they did a great job, especially for the PlayStation guys, where you can't necessarily get the Mass Effect games free on Game Pass because EA Play is a part of Game Pass. And it was great to drop back in and start playing the Mass Effect games again, in pure HD. Kind of reminded me why I was excited when they remastered Call of Duty Modern Warfare and then Modern Warfare 2 for the new consoles. So it ends up in our top 10 list. But the one thing I would say is I don't know if it was necessarily worth $60. I mean, it was like a full retail price right out the gate, where most remasters are about $20 to $30 to maybe $40, depending on what you're getting.
Like last year's Tony Hawk. That's the main reason I put this one on. I voted for it because I was so impressed with Tony Hawk, and I love the fact that it looks so much better, that it loads so much quicker. Good God.
I was about to say, but that's a game that everybody has raged on for like ever and a day, and I'll give Mass Effect it's nod of the hat. I played some of it. It's not my bag. I appreciate the storylines and kind of a little bit, but I feel that, this is just EA's way of going space for neckbeards.
Right.
And, that's okay, I guess, but it's like, as Chad said, Tony Hawk is awesome. Everybody knows Tony Hawk. I mean, like,
I wish that had come out this year so I could vote for it again, because I love Tony Hawk.
I was about to say, like, people say Mass Effect, and you hear some people like, go, what? Like, or yeah, okay, whatever. But like, you say Tony Hawk, people are like, fucking Tony Hawk. I love that game. You don't need you skin, your knees bled for like 4 feet. Oh, it was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not saying that the first 3 Mass Effect games shouldn't be remastered and they're fun to go back and play. I'm just saying that it wasn't worth $60.
No.
And that was EA trying to gouge their customers.
What? EA trying to gouge their customer base? Buy upon you.
No,
but that would be wrong.
That would be morally reprehensible. I can't believe they would do such a thing.
Right. Every form of everything, every DLC for the Battlefront game in 2017. Of course, we're going to make you pay $60 for it, even though it's one mission.
God.
Yeah. But I have no doubt that it will end up on EA Play at some point, or it's cheap to get. And if you are a Mass Effect fan, definitely go back and replay. It was fun to revisit. But you're right. It's not Tony Hawk, and Tony Hawk, the game that came out last year, absolutely awesome. Mm-hmm. And we definitely got to get back into Tony Hawk. Well, we definitely got to get back and doing some tournaments with that game. We need to find some cheap copies of that. All right. Rounding out at number 5, and I'm going to let Chad tell us a little bit about why this is number 5, because you are the main Nintendo guy here. But Animal Crossing New Horizons DLC Happy Home Paradise.
Yeah. Happy Home Paradise made the pandemic savior of Animal Crossing a completely different experience. Like, and that's why I had to put it on this list, because it was playing a completely different game. I know it was at the center of some controversy because it was kind of sandwiched in with the whole. They said that this was going to be their last DLC that they did, paid or otherwise. It was their first paid DLC ever for Animal Crossing, but and they also kind of folded it into their big expansion pass debacle where it gave you access to Nintendo 64 titles and Sega Genesis titles that you could play online. And there's been issues galore with people that have been having problems with the Nintendo 64 library. But I just got it as a standalone DLC for Animal Crossing because I'm such a fan of that game. And it takes you off the main island onto a separate island where you start building houses for other people. And it gives you, design tools that you didn't have in the Prime game, in the core game that we've had now for over a year. And when this was originally released, when Happy Home Academy, I think is what it was called, on the 3DS, it was a separate title. It wasn't DLC. It was its own separate standalone game. So, and they in essence took a standalone game and folded it into DLC for the sequel. And it made it changed the core game as well as adding to the game, making it a separate, like, this is your job now is designing homes.
Right.
It literally, I know this is going to be so freaking cliched, but it literally was a game changer. It made the game completely different. It doesn't even feel like the same game anymore, but the same game is still there. So it just a ton of value added for, if you got the expansion pass, you basically got this for free. But if you didn't get the expansion pass, it was like a $20 DLC, and it was well worth what you paid, in my opinion.
Well, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head too about, gaming during the pandemic and things that they dropped. I mean, Animal Crossings isn't for everyone. I think it has its own kind of niche group, but at the same time, having something that you can go to that's relaxing, games like that should be praised for those that play it. And if you're only spending in $20 on the DLC for something that does feel like it's kind of new and different, then Nintendo, kudos to you for not overcharging customers.
Mm-hmm.
Can't say that about every other company, EA, Activision.
Although you still can't get a copy of Mario Party 8 for less than $50. So,
well, that's true. Or Mario Kart. I mean, I see used copies for the Switch that still run at like $55. I'm like, serious?
Yeah.
My nephew was asking me about, well, why don't you have the Switch anymore? I'm like, well, the games that you like to play are all actually on the Wii Universe, and I found a really great deal on that during the pandemic. So I'm like, we can still do Mario Kart, we can still do Smash Bros. I mean, it's the same game. And they're half the price of what the Switch game is to have the other console. Not saying I won't get a Switch again, but if you only want to play those certain games, like Mario 3D, Mario New University and stuff, then I have them here on this console and they still look just as good, But maybe Nintendo gouges you just a little bit for the name brand.
Always. They always will.
I was going to say Nintendo gouges people. What? Because didn't they created a whole separate cell company so that way they could fucking gouge people on Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
I mean, they literally did. They just created a shell corporation. Was like, cool, Pokemon Go, awesome. Here, you're gonna pay for every fucking thing ever.
Are you sure it's not the same people from EA going to Nintendo and like, here's how we can charge for every little thing? And
dude, there is some kind of Habsburg, Germanic Victorian era style mixing going on in this motherfucker. It ain't right. Gene holes are getting too narrow.
Well, something that this documentary about Xbox, that at the very last episode, when the new guy, Philip, I forget the guy's name, I'm drawing a blank, came in and after all the letdowns with the Xbox One, they tried to make it a media center. But when they started Game Pass, it was talking about the value of stuff and really showing off, especially indie games that you may not want to pay for. They talked about value. And when we did our article about talking about Game Pass, especially the sports games, by October of this year, they have 30 million subscribers to Game Pass.
Wow.
Okay. Paying 10 to $15 a month. Okay. They're making over $400 million every month from subscribers. It is now in a year, it nets them billions of dollars every year just to be a subscriber worldwide. You think that you can't make a profit off putting games on a subscription service like that, and where people are constantly paying month to month versus trying to gouge them for DLC that's way overpriced? This is the future of gaming. Microsoft is proving that.
Mm-hmm.
This is part of our daily, monthly bills is our subscription services to games or, stuff.
As long as it doesn't become predatory in nature like it slowly has been, because I'm not going to lie, Game Pass is the price has kind of gone up a little bit overall. I mean, I'm not going to fib that it doesn't need to go up, because they are offering more stuff and they are trying to give us newer and better games all the time, which is cool. If you want to try a game and then be like, yeah, no, I'll totally buy this before it goes off Game Pass or whatever, which I've done a few times. But in a way, it also does feel like, it's riding the fucking lightning. It's damn close to getting, where it's almost out of hand. But I hope it doesn't do that.
I don't mind it going up a little bit with the acquisition of new studios like Bethesda and more releases and more day one releases. And we're going to get it like Halo. And we're going to talk about Halo because, yes, it did end up in our top 10 list. But this is the first time ever that you got to play Halo day one if you're a Game Pass subscriber. And that's awesome.
Yeah.
But there's also ways to get around having to pay, $15 a month or $16 with tax. You could buy, there's third-party companies like Aniba, or they're always having sales on buy 3 months at a time type deal where you can save. I go through Aniba when I buy my subscription, so I only end up really only paying like $10 a month for Game Pass. So I don't feel like I'm really losing anything. There's ways to save money, but I don't disagree with you, Scott. Okay, if you're not, you have to keep driving enough content to make it worth paying it every month, or then you're just like an HBO subscription that people only subscribe to when the next season of Game of Thrones is on.
Or like so many other like streaming services out there. It's like you have to have content, yes, but it has to be content that people want to actually watch or want to actually play. Because I don't know about PS Now currently, but I remember when it first dropped, that was the thing. It was just a whole bunch of games that no one had ever fucking heard of, or B, really remembered. And a lot of times you play it for about 4 or 5 minutes and you were done. Didn't give a fuck.
And they were charging $25 a month for it.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Any of the back catalog of PS2, PS3 games you had to stream, and if you didn't have a strong enough connection, I mean, it's better now at $10 a month for everything you get. And I've subscribed to it, but everything that's on there, that I want to play, I generally have already bought cheap, at a store or a digital copy when it was on sale. There's no reason for me to subscribe. I think their big shtick when they were really promoting it a few months ago during the holidays was The Last of Us Part 2 is finally on PlayStation Now. Great.
Whoopty shit. No one cares.
Well, as much as you might want to play that game, it's also disappearing at the end of January.
Mm-hmm.
So I finally got a copy of it. I will go and play it at some point, but I got a copy for $15. So I'm like, I don't need to subscribe to your service to play. I feel like Game Pass has a lot more, especially with indie games. So
Yeah.
I'm more happy to pay for that versus PlayStation Now. I do subscribe to EA Play on the PlayStation. But other than that, it's just, to me, most of the games that I want to play, I feel like it's better just for the free games that they offer through PlayStation Plus more than anything else.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're offering PlayStation 5 games now. Last year, Godfall was by Gearbox was one of the first games to be exclusive on PlayStation. I bought a copy of it, played, excuse me, played a little bit of it. It was great. Not even a year later, and it's the free PlayStation monthly PlayStation 5 game on PlayStation Plus. So, and then I was able to go trade in the disc for trade credit. So it's like, oh, great, okay. 2 years in after Destiny 2 got released and they were starting to release some of the DLC, the core game ended up free on PlayStation Plus. And they're like, well, you can download this free on PlayStation Now. Why?
Mm-hmm. Why?
Nobody.
So I applaud them for having a better price than what they used to have, but you're still playing catch up to what Microsoft has done with the Game Pass. So anyway, but Chad, you sing high praises for the DLC Happy Home Paradise. So it sounds like it's a must purchase for people who love to play Animal Crossings, and it's at the right price.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Anything that adds value to a game that's already good, that's always a winner in my book.
All right, we got 4 games left on our list. Number 4 turned out to be our sports game of the year. First time ever that we have an NHL game be our sports game of the year. NHL 22. Now, I'm very excited to announce I love NHL. Scott and I love playing each other, and in this game, I think it's the best sports game out there. But the reason it hasn't always rated very high is it's not as popular of a sports game with EA compared to Madden or FIFA. It's also the first time that this game went to the Frostbite engine and they had more realistic gameplay compared to what they did, 4 years ago with FIFA and Madden. So they're a little behind the times. However, it is literally the best hockey game ever made. It is more realistic, looks better than the ones they've had. If you've relied on the CPU too much in your gameplay and past versions, you're going to have to relearn how to play, especially to control passes and stuff. I can't praise this game high enough. It's almost perfect. But when Scott and I played, that's one downside is the developers.
There's a fucking learning curve, that's for sure.
Yeah, they don't know hockey. The wrong penalties get called. They don't call penalty shots if you are ahead and have a breakaway and you get clipped in the back where you can't make your shot. They never call those in the game, and it's infuriating. But Scott's right. There is a learning curve. You have to kind of relearn how to play hockey because it is more realistic. And I think that's a good thing. But everything if you are a fan of NHL games, then you definitely need to have this. And I bought this specifically for the PlayStation 5. I wanted to see how it looked, and I couldn't have been more pleased with it. So it is in our top 10, and it is our sports game of the year. And I can tell you, out of all the sports games that came out this year, it is the one that has been vastly improved. Because FIFA kind of sucked this year. Madden was the same game last year. NBA 2K, all you did was fix some of the bugs from last year. So anyway, NHL 22, sports game of the year. It's fantastic in our top 10. If you're interested in playing a hockey game, I think you can actually get digital copies for about $25 right now.
Was it last year's version or this year's version where they did the Genesis remake?
That was last year's version where they did the Genesis remake.
Okay. because I thought that was awesome. I love that. I love the NHL Classic that they did with the updated roster.
Oh God, no, yeah, and be able to download that on Game Pass. I mean, that's a lot of fun. So
I wish they would all do that. I wish EA would do that with every game they had in their sports line.
God, yeah. So being able to go back and play hockey on the old Sega Genesis.
Well, not even that. Going back and be able to play like original Madden, on with an updated roster. I mean, yeah, it'd be little cheese, but at the same time,
it's just reeking of kick-ass nostalgia. And
I was about to say,
we're all about that. We're all about just something that oozes nostalgia, but it's something that it was a phenomenal game to play. And I'm really surprised I didn't do it this year, but in retrospect, they didn't know what they didn't know. I can't help but think they'll probably do it next year.
Right.
With him back on the cover. They've got to put him back on the cover for next year's Madden, or at least do an edition with him on the cover.
Oh God, yeah, absolutely. I think Madden will probably be a little overshadowed next year, or this year. I should say this year now, because I think they are actually, now that they got past all the lawsuits and stuff, they are probably going to be able to release another NCAA football game. And once they do that, its sales are going to skyrocket. It's been far too long.
Yeah.
But anyway, all right. Number 3 on our top 10 game list, Call of Duty Vanguard. As I mentioned before at the beginning of this podcast, it's the first time ever that we've rated a Call of Duty game this high. Scott and I were the ones who got through the campaign, and vastly improved compared to some of the stuff that they have done. Unique, great characters. We had a lot of fun with it. Scott, what made you really love this game that you rated it this high?
I mean, because it was finally a storyline that not only felt, a touch back to their roots about how they started and everything else like that, but it's a storyline that I actually could get behind and made sense. I mean, you could tell effort was put towards the storyline this go around. It wasn't just some blase half-ass attempts. I mean, it wasn't completely on the button. Okay, I'll get that. But, and in some ways I got to give it some slaps because, they're doing what they always do. They just take the same old shit and reskin it. But, them taking real actors, giving their likenesses into the game, giving you a really like almost TV show quality script, like a good TV show, like an HBO show or something like that, quality script. And, oddly, it didn't really feel like they were playing out to the neckbeards. It legitimately felt like an attempt at something. So, that's why I enjoyed it.
I felt like it was a great callback to Call of Duty 2, where you played on different fronts. You drop into D-Day, in the European front, you get to play a Russian story, in Stalingrad, which was great. The Pacific, it took kind of a learning curve to be able to do the dive bombing in the Pacific and during the Battle of Midway. I thought that was great. And then you're in Africa. Everything came together where you got to go back to these fronts that you're familiar with. Okay. And that was one of the things I did during the pandemic is I went and found old Xbox Call of Duty games for the 360. Another great thing that Xbox, did nearly 20 years ago is they were the first console to bring the Call of Duty franchise. And I went back and I played World at War, and I went and played Call of Duty 2 and 3. Loved it, on the 360. And I felt this was a great callback to those games and why we love those stories. So, and the Russian story was just absolutely my favorite. When I got to it, I kept texting Scott, "Oh my God, I feel like I'm an Enemy of the Gates when you're having to sneak around the shop."
Yeah, I mean, in a way, yeah, I kind of enjoyed that aspect. I thought it was really, really interesting. But in the same way, I kind of just felt like, yeah, this is World at War all over again. You
Yeah.
know, it's like, yeah, you gave me the ability to get up behind people and do really cool takedowns, and you do a little bit of hardcore parkour. Okay, but like I say, it's good. It's no number one, but the best way to put it. It's a step in the right direction. Just try harder.
Well,
That's
I they can definitely make a better game,
oh
but
yeah,
I think it's definitely a lot better than
past games. Holy
back-
shit, yes.
making another Black Ops game, which we didn't need. I don't care how cool it is to have Reagan send them on a secret mission. I mean, the technology of putting Reagan in that game was really cool, but it's
But
just like
well, this is my thing. I'm sick and tired of people glorifying the CIA. Those guys are assholes, man. Don't make them look like heroes. Fuck them.
Yeah.
Like 3/4 of the world's problems, they fucking start. Seriously, I'm
Yeah.
not fucking joking. Mhm.
I don't need to revisit the Modern Warfare characters either. It was great. You made a great trilogy. Okay, just give me the remastered versions of those games, and I'll go back and play because they have replay value. All right.
Yep.
If you're going to have new and interesting and unique stories, that's what you're supposed to have. Give me those. Give me a sequel to Ghost. Quit. We've said this
Yes.
before.
What the fuck is it? And the thing is if you can't get a hold of like a way to give us a sequel to Ghost, then how about that whole thing where the old man is telling the story about how the ghost got started? Turn
Yeah.
that into a fucking game. And
Yeah.
the whole game doesn't have to be this thing of happened over years and time and everything else. The game can literally just be like these motherfuckers trying to hold out for like 6 hours. How many? I mean, that's what war is. They make movies on shit like that. Come on, gang, you can do it too.
Well, by the way, I'm going to give a shout out to a director friend. I always love interviewing him. He's an independent filmmaker, makes great action movies. William Kaufman, he's from the Dallas area. We got to know him years ago with his Daylight's End movie, a little zombie movie. And he works with Johnny Strong all the time. But they make great war movies. And they have a new one coming out this year called War Horse One, about a soldier left behind enemy lines that has to kind of help rescue a Afghan kid. And this is somebody who gets filmmaking or gets storytelling. You're never going to see huge wide releases or whatever. He's got another great one coming out about New Orleans, about taking on, I believe the story is about taking on drug lords or whatever, but he's got Clayton Crawford in it, who was in the Lethal Weapon series on Fox, who actually played a pretty good Mark Riggs. Anyway, I always come back when I complain about Call of Duty and storytelling. I always kind of come back to his movies. I'm like, this guy, just have him write a Call of Duty game and let me fucking play it. Seriously. And Chad, you remember the movie Daylight Saving? It came out in 2016 at the film festival. I mean, they had like the entire cast there.
Yeah.
And and what made it great, it was its debut because they shot it in Dallas. He literally got permission to shoot that movie in the old Dallas County Jail. And they shut down streets, and it was just Lance Hendrickson was in it as the old, patriarch. And the premise of that story was just about an alpha male type zombie that could think, that was hunting them down as they're trying to escape. It was just it was just a fun fucking zombie movie. And I mean, the crowd went wild during the live screening. And I'm thinking, again, here's a great storyteller. Take his stories and make them video games. I want to play them. So there you go. Match made in heaven, Activision. So, but anyway, yeah, Call of Duty ended up in our top 3. It's one of the better games that they've had during the last 10 years. They can definitely make better games, and we hope they do. But we did really enjoy this one, and it's got some good replay value. So, and a really interesting zombie mode. So there you go. All right, we got to round out our last two games. Call of Duty did not end up being our shooter of the year based on how the votes almost. But Halo Infinite comes out at number 2, and it turns out to be our shooting game of the year. If you are a fan of Halo, if you've enjoyed all the games over the years, you have to play Halo Infinite. I'm not saying it's the best one they've ever made, but that's another series that went back to its roots with the Master Chief. You know,
I'm a little over it.
well, I didn't say it was the greatest.
Oh, no. That's a conversation for a different time. But yeah, no.
Well, I'm just saying that.
But you're right. It is a game that, because they haven't put out a Halo in a while, that has felt like Halo, even though I like Guardians, but it didn't actually feel like a Halo game.
Right.
But it is a Halo game that does feel like Halo. But there's a lot of buts behind it. It's an okay game, but it is worth playing. It is worth giving it its time. It is worth, just so that way you can have an opinion on it, because it is one of those games that, unfortunately, I see this as being a game that eventually is going to change the way Halo is going to go from here on out after this. So it's kind of like playing Halo 3. Everybody, kind of argues around whether or not Halo 3 is their favorite or the best or whatever. But it was the one that essentially became the linchpin in the changing of how Halo would go from then on.
Right.
And this is also going to be that game. So, we don't have to love it. You don't have to sing high praises about it. Yes, have, objections, open-mindedness to it and this, that, and the other, but it's going to be something different. So,
yeah. I don't know if Halo is ever going to be as great or as popular as when it first got released. And just, taking the idea of the first person shooter to a new console and being able to connect and the co-op.
I think it is possible. And I think maybe, I don't know, that the reason kind of why they did the game the way they did is because they are doing a Halo TV series coming out
right
now, the new year. So maybe they're trying to do, whatever, we're going to do stuff with that sort of thing. I don't know. But as you said, to make it really, really have that feel, that change that we want, it would take for them to really do some deep diving in like their backlog lore, their written books,
sure.
And go, hey, where are these little things that we mentioned that we haven't really touched on, because they're kind of hitting a dry spot in the well,
Right.
So,
well, as I said, maybe not the best of the Halo games. I mean, the multiplayer is kind of shit, and they definitely need to make mass improvements on that.
mm-hmm.
But the fact that it's the first Halo that you get that day one you could play on Game Pass, I think that's monumental as well. I certainly enjoyed Halo. I love going back and playing the campaigns. We'll definitely probably go back and play this one. There's a lot of things that I liked about it. But
no, and I will very much agree. There are things that I really did like about it. And like I said, I discussed that in the articles that we got in the last issue, I believe, or this one coming.
Last issue.
The last issue. So yeah, if you haven't checked that out, go to those last issues, because we discuss everything at length in the articles in there. So, but yeah, no, I agree with you.
Well, again, I mean, you really look at the magic of what Halo became as a first-person shooter with the first Xbox console and the LAN parties that people had and being able to connect it.
Oh God, those were the days.
Yeah, I know, right? And you can still do it. You can still do it if you now that they've made the update changes to it that they made like a week ago. But when they first released the multiplayer, they released it with a very, very, very fucking limited and not user-friendly playlist system, an algorithm system. And so, it's probably better now, but it's honestly one of those things that it's like, guys, you've been doing this shit day one. That's your big thing you've been doing day one, and you didn't release it. What the fuck?
Actually, in their defense, Bungie did it day one, not 343 Studios.
Right.
Well, true.
So they're still kind of got a couple extra thumbs on their hands when it comes to this stuff. But trust me, I know, because that's exactly what I spent Christmas Day doing with my podcast buddy Derek. We sat here in this new studio and played Halo Infinite and Halo
Master Chief Collection
all day long. That's all we did.
Yeah,
literally all we did, and had a ball. I felt like we were back in the early aughts.
Yeah, and to give us that kind of nostalgia, to take us back a little bit to what it used to be and how great Halo was in the beginning. I really wish that I had gotten to enjoy that, but anyway, it did end up on our top 10 list at number 2. We all enjoyed it for various reasons, even if it's not the greatest of the Halos. But as I said, if you've enjoyed playing Halo before, you have an Xbox, you've got Game Pass, go download it, run through the campaign. I don't think there's an absolute terrible Halo game. There's just campaigns that are kind of like, they're okay. And maybe that's what this one is. But it's still a hell of a lot of fucking fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it really is.
Let's face it, not many of us play Halo for the campaign.
Yeah. So
no, I disagree. For me, that's the biggest thing, because for me, I don't give a flying fuck about the multiplayer. Because if you want to look at that, I mean, the entire crux of toxic gaming culture came out of Halo. So, and so you can't even be like, oh, it's a font of fun times. They fucking invented the teabag, ladies and gentlemen. The most horrible thing in the fucking world. They fucking invented it.
Well, but I agree with Chad. I kind of miss the days of LAN parties and back when I was early days in college.
Oh, I totally miss that shit. I loved that shit. That was great.
And this room that I've got now is set up perfectly for that, by the way, Marcus. So just so you know.
Nice. So, all right. Halo Infinite is our shooter of the year. It comes out at number 2. It is time to announce the actual game of the year for 2021. The game that we rated the highest, the game that we thought was the best, that we loved. And here it is. Resident Evil Village. There is no better game this year. I cannot praise this game enough, especially if you're a Resident Evil fan.
Game it is fear back in atmosphere.
Oh God, yes. Another series that went back to its roots, especially with Biohazard, and this is a direct sequel to that game. Beth was talking about it with me in a text message about the anxiety that she felt going through that creepy village. And I kind of I get that. I absolutely get that.
I'll tell you what, I'm normally, whenever I play a game, especially whenever it's first person and stuff like that, I cannot emphasize enough to people. You have sights, fucking use them. But I'll say this much: in this game, you better be ready to fire from the fucking hip and back the fuck up. That's all it is. That's all it is. It's just oh snap, and you're just like, oh, okay. And then maybe after you back up a little bit, you can do some aiming, but
dropping out of the walls everywhere. Yeah, when you get to the underground and the underground castle ruins, that drove me nuts.
Oh my God, yes.
I had to run through that a few times to finally complete it, and it was just.
I got to give so much kudos and so much props to the team that have, I guess, taken the reins over from the schmuckatellis that cranked out Resident Evil 5 and 6, which I think are pretty much like the Voldemorts of the Resident Evil canon. Because
which is what a lot of people agree on, 100%, and then yet they choose to take those characters from 5 and 6 and tie them into Biohazard and this one. I mean, it's just
character, sure, but just do not take that gameplay style, because they took something that what we are, like Marcus said at the beginning, we've come back to what we started with, because 5 and 6, they weren't horror survival games. They were die-hard freaking popcorn summer blockbuster film.
You know
type
what I feel like?
environment.
You know what I feel like?
It
Those
was so unlike what we accustomed to playing. It wasn't the same experience.
I feel like those two games are like they're just they're DLC for a Resident Evil game. They're like the fun stuff that you can kind of play. Like I get having a Chris Redfield story, you know, and obviously
He's a crucial character.
He's tied into Resident Evil 2 because you know Claire's going to look for him.
Yeah, he's been there from get-go. Yeah, he's been there from the get-go.
Right. However, Resident Evil is built on being a horror survival. You need to creep the shit out of those games. There should be a level of intensity and anxiety to them that, you know, you got to have the lights on when you're playing and you're just like, oh my God, what the fuck came out of the wall? And Lady Di just haunting you all over that mansion was incredible. So I liked Biohazard. I'm actually going back and playing it again.
And I like it. Honest, I never finished it because I was too damn. I can't believe I'm going to say this. I was too damn scared to finish the damn game. That game gave me, like you said, so much anxiety. I'm like, I can't play this. It's too good.
You know, Alex,
that's a damn good problem to have with a game. A horror survival game that's too terrifying to finish.
In 2017, Alex Moore did a review on that game and compared it to the Evil Within 2. And he was talking about which one is the scariest, which one's going to end up in my list. And he picked Biohazard because it was like everything you love about a Resident Evil game and the horror aspects of it. So,
and I feel for me like one of the biggest things of it that really added the extra anxiety, the extra ambiance of, okay, what the fuck is behind me, what's moving, is the fact that it's in first person. I mean, that was been one of the downfalls I felt with, you know, the other Resident Evil games because they're in third person. Is I'm so paranoid by nature anyway that, you know, I always notice if there's something moving behind me. So I just snap around and be like, ha, 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 until something jumped through the window, Nemesis.
Well, I'm going to take this time to complain about the Game Awards as being the authority on picking the best games of every year and blah, blah. But I think it needs to be pointed out just how wrong they get it every fucking year. Okay.
I don't even watch them. I don't even follow them.
Yeah. I mean, this year's game of the year with them is a game called It Takes Two, some kind of cartoonish multiplayer that barely came out. No one's heard about.
It's a shell. It's a fucking shell.
No, I agree. And while I think at best dramatic game is how they rated Resident Evil Village, I'm like, well, fine. We get that. That's why it's worthy of being game of the year. You know, and that hence why Ghost of Tsushima should have been better rated last year with them. All I'm saying, the reason this one is picked by us and is critically acclaimed this year, it might have been an off year for games. Sure, whatever. It doesn't take away from the fact of how great this game would have been. It would have easily been in the top 10 anyway.
Yeah. I mean, and this is my thing. Like for me, this game would have been top 5 anyway. I mean, even if we had like other games that were just mind blowing, whatever. Like even if Deathloop went out to, everybody, and I was able to pick it up because I only have a PlayStation 4, so I wasn't able to play it. But even with watching gameplay of that, seeing people play it, the storyline of that would have rated lower for me. You know, because you know, but you know, this game, like, I liked it. I mean, it's been a while since I've liked a Resident Evil game, and I'll tell you what, there was nothing worse than when I was sitting there, and all of a sudden you're just like, oh, and you fall through that floorboard, and there's all those bodies and shit, and then all of a sudden you just like, oh, what's on my hand? And then you look up, and that fucking thing's gnawing on your fingers, and you're just like, now what the fuck am I gonna do? I don't have 2 fucking fingers.
Well, all I know is that fucking village. I mean, you couldn't have come up with a more perfect setting trying to get out of that creepy village. It's just
and a lot of times I don't like with games whenever they unlock areas and it's just like, okay, great, this is just a stupid fucking repeat of the other area or whatever else. But no, with this village, it actually had like it had that feeling of, okay, this actually is a village. It's still clustered and close together, and it's still kind of the same, but it's still all kind of fucking different. And I liked it.
Well,
I
especially
really
with the
did.
challenge and why you had to go back and get like keys to unlock stuff. And
Yeah. And everything made sense that way too. So I mean, there was benefit to it. And
well,
I enjoyed the shit out of it.
Biohazard, I felt like was kind of short in a lot of ways as a game in its setting, whereas I felt like this one was bigger because between the village and then the whole, plant that you have to go through multiple levels, and there was a lot more to it in getting, to the end. And then you go right back to the village with the special forces team that has to take down the big evil monster. They did a great job, and it's one of the best Resident Evil games. I loved it so much that I got done with it finally right before the Thanksgiving holidays. And I'm like, I spent that week of Thanksgiving, because there wasn't much going on, just playing Resident Evil games. I went back and played 2 again, like the remake from Claire's perspective, the remake of 3. Like, see, I can praise them wanting to remake these games for the newer consoles because it's a little bit different. It's not a complete remastered. They added more to it, to the storylines. And, I hear that they're doing a remake of Resident Evil 4, which is generally considered, the best of the series.
Yeah, because that's one of the most popular characters based off Leon. So
yeah. So, but this one definitely opens up to a sequel. I can't wait for it. All I'm saying, they did an incredible job with it.
oh, it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah. As much as I loved the remake of 2 that came out a couple of years ago, and definitely get a cheap copy. I was talking with a cleric on our staff about that, because I bought a digital copy and gave her my physical one. And she's like, I want to just cosplay and then like play Claire's story. I'm like, that's exactly what you should do for your, YouTube channel. You never get tired of being able to do the different perspectives of that game, which made it amazing because there's different things you have to do. It isn't exactly the same depending on what character you're playing. I feel like this game is kind of similar, that you may do things a little bit differently if you go back and play it.
Yeah, and no, that's kind of my thing. Knowing what I know now, how the game is going to change out and stuff. Like, it would be fun to kind of go back with a little bit more foresight, or because they give you the new Game Plus modes, you can go through with all your powerful shit and everything else like that, and still, do stuff. But
now, Chad, I know Chad, you're a huge Resident Evil fan. Where do you put this game, like in the context of the entire series?
Well, I haven't had a chance to get that deep into it because of everything that's been going on around here with the whole move and everything. But just from what I've seen, I'm so impressed that they can reinvent the wheel with this franchise, with how they started off with I don't even know if you could call what they did with Biohazard a soft reboot. It felt like a hard reboot to me, kind of. Because of the change in perspective. We've never had a first person perspective before. With the change in locale, with the change in the style of storytelling, it comes off as more of a Texas Chainsaw Massacre rather than a Night of the Living Dead type thing.
Well, and even that right there, Chad. I mean, like, they changed the kind of, the way in which these bio weapons or whatever, they're less zombies and more like, something more biological or whatever.
They changed the nature of the threat, both the nature and the threat. And it was a bold move that I think they were probably hedging their bets on. I'm like, okay, are we sure this is how we want to do this? Because they knew they had to do something, because the series had dropped off so drastically from 6 to where, I just call it, they were basically trying to make, and I thought this was ironic, that they took a game series and made it into a movie series, and then they tried to make that game series like the movie series.
Yeah,
that's what 5 and 6 felt like to me. That they were trying to make it like these Mila Jovovich pieces of shit that were passing as cinema, and I think they wound up just successfully alienating everybody, both the fans of the film why they were fans of the film, I have no idea. And longtime fans of the game. They pissed off both of their core audiences. So whenever they took it back to I wouldn't even say that they took Resident Evil back to its roots, because this doesn't feel like Resident Evil's roots.
It almost feels like something better.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. They finally evolved the franchise.
Yep.
And
well, maybe the only way that you could say about taking back to its roots is the fact that you're going back to horror survival, and that's
that, if nothing else, yes, I will agree with you there. That they forgot where they came from, and now they're back to where they came from. And right. Like, I remember Stephen King was talking about when he was writing Pet Sematary that he wanted to write a book that he was too scared to finish writing, and that's why I said what I said about Biohazard. They made a game I was too scared to finish playing, and because I'm so freaking angsty about it, I'm paranoid as shit, and living out here in the country like I do now, that don't help much, because you hear every damn thing. You hear every howl you think is coming to eat you in your driveway.
Just because we're all veterans, and I didn't really get to talk trash with Chad about the Army-Navy game, the only comment I'm going to say is what I'm hearing is Navy's too scared to play a horror survival game.
I don't know what you're hearing, you asshole.
Love you, brother.
I was like, believe it or not, like there were times. How many controllers got launched in Resident Evil whenever those damn dogs came crashing through the glass?
I know, right?
Oh, I don't even know. The
scene that launched 1,000 dual shocks. I'm like, I will never forget that. And I always think of that. I was like, I'm always waiting for that moment in a Resident Evil game. Where's going to be the Cerberus moment where they come crashing through the window? Because I know it's coming. Wow. I think we all knew what it was in this game. I think we all know real well what it is in the Resident Evil, what it is in Resident Evil Village.
Well, this is why we rated this game the best game of the year. In any other year, it would still be a top 10. So, but to the developers of Resident Evil, thank you for making an outstanding horror survival game in a great, creepy, gothic setting with fantastic characters, and we look forward to see
keep on going in this direction, because you're going.
Oh yeah, no, this is a storyline worth chasing. I'm excited to keep doing it.
And I'm going to add one little tidbit about the storyline. Okay, Scott and I were talking about this when we both finished it. At the end of the game, if you haven't finished it, but a little spoiler for you, we're just giving you a fair warning. Rosemary, she's a teenager and she's visiting the gravesite of her dad, Ethan. She looks off in the distance and sees someone in the cemetery. Well, if you use like photo app or top with PlayStation, somebody did it, and you can zoom in, and it's Ethan.
But is it? That is the ultimate question, because, and we can't get too much into that without, really going cray-cray into the storyline, because we could have a very strong juxtaposition about this, and we can.
Well, but that's what I'm saying is, whether it is or isn't, or that's what she's seeing or whatever, what they can do with this storyline and how it connects all of the characters from the franchise, sky's the limit. All I'm saying is, do not try to make some kind of special forces first-person shooter like you did with 5 and 6. Make another great horror survival game with Rosemary.
That was honestly one of my least favorite parts of the game, is when you switch over to Chris Redfield. I'm just like, why? What the fucking point?
Well, I get it. I do get it that you had to, but the best part of the game is up till that moment. It really is.
Yeah.
So, all right, everybody, we got to round out this show. We'll have our full article and everything that you can read online and what we thought. But this is our game of the year for 2021, Resident Evil Village. And again, the Game Awards get it wrong. I don't care what anybody thinks. We are more of authorities when it comes to great storytelling in video games. And this one surpassed everything. It was the best game that we played this year. So, and it makes you definitely want to go back and play the other Resident Evil games. And right now, you can get them on sale, digital copies in the Xbox and the PlayStation Store. So, and because I'm such a huge fan, that's also why I still have a poster for the remake of Resident Evil 2 in the background. Because whether you're playing from Leon or Claire's perspective, that game, you could always go back and play that game, and it's phenomenal.
It's a
So,
nail biter. It is an absolute nail biter.
But Resident Evil Village, oh my God, perfect Resident Evil game for the new consoles. I mean, it just as scary as shit as they are, even better on 8K graphics and stuff like that. So, all right. Thank you for tuning into our Game of the Year show. We look forward to 2022 and all the games that are coming out this year. I feel like it's going to be a more contentious debate in a year about what we think is the best game, because we've got a lot of games this year that got delayed and are coming out finally. So, but in the meantime, until about February, when you get to start playing some of these new games, you got plenty of time to go get a copy of Resident Evil Village and get through it if you haven't, or do the new Halo campaign or the new Call of Duty campaign. So, thanks very much, everybody. We will be back with our full podcast schedule after a short break, and we can't wait to start 2022. And I know Chad is excited to be in his new studio with the Electric Jellyfish podcast coming back. We can't wait to listen to future episodes.
Thank you, sir.
We should be back next week talking about our top 10 movies and TV shows of 2021 before we really get into new stuff in 2022. So stick with us. All right, everybody. It is time to say goodbye.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Oh,